Now, just before Santa gets here, it's the ITV News.
Remembering the 6 victims of the Glasgow bin lorry crash. The Archbishop spoke of trying to comfort a woman who saw both her daughter and parents die.
We spoke and we cried and we were silent before the abyss of their loss and the random meaninglessness of what had happened.
Also ahead, clashes in the US city of St. Louis after a second black teenager is killed by police in 4 months. Fears tonight for a Jordanian pilot captured by Islamic State after a warplane crashes in Syria. And spending Christmas where Christmas is cancelled. The British medics on the Ebola front line.
This is ITV News with Nina Hossain.
Good evening. The Archbishop of Glasgow says he wept with a woman who witnessed both her daughter and her parents being killed by an out-of-control bin lorry in the city. Speaking at a special service to remember all 6 victims of the accident on Monday, he described her abyss of loss. Tonight, 5 people are still in hospital, including a 14-year-old girl who is seriously ill and the driver of the vehicle. From Glasgow, Ben Chapman reports.
It may be Christmas Eve, but this was a service not of celebration, but consolation. A gathering intended to bring some small comfort to the families of 6 people who are facing Christmas without their loved ones.
And we pray for those who have been bereaved, for the relatives of the injured, for traumatised witnesses and passers-by, and for our city of Glasgow, which is reeling from this latest sad and sudden tragedy.
The Archbishop spoke about meeting the woman who watched her own parents, Jack and Lorraine Sweeney, and her daughter, Erin McQuaid, die in front of her.
Can you imagine the horror? Can you imagine her sadness? I tried to console them and comfort them. We spoke and we cried and we were silent before the abyss of their loss and the random meaninglessness of what had happened.
Another 10 people were injured in the chaos of Monday afternoon, including a 14-year-old girl and the bin lorry driver, as police continue to investigate how it came to crash. 2 days on, the flowers continue to arrive as a city comes together in grief. Sympathy, the only gift they can offer to those who are bereaved.
It's quite difficult knowing it's Christmas tomorrow and I've got my own children, do you know what I mean? And all these families have kind of lost parents, and that's why I just came down to put some flowers down just to pay a wee bit of respect.
The people went out to buy the Christmas presents and they're never going home now. It's just heartbreaking, really heartbreaking.
Tonight, the festive lights are back on in George Square. Its funfair will reopen on Boxing Day as this city tries to get back to normal. It is partly the randomness of this tragedy that has brought people together. The sense that it could have been anybody or any family that found themselves caught up in it. Many people here will find it hard to reconcile the joy of Christmas with the sadness of the last few days. Ben Chapman, ITV News, Glasgow.
Police in the US city of St. Louis have defended shooting a second black teenager in 4 months. Michael Brown's death in August sparked some violent protests. Last night's shooting also saw clashes with officers. Footage of the moments before the incident are now being examined. From the United States, Robert Moore reports.
Once more, a suburb of St. Louis in Missouri is facing racial turmoil and community fury. For last night, another black teenager was killed by a white police officer, and an angry crowd gathered at this petrol station where the deadly confrontation took place. The body of 18-year-old Antonio Martin was taken away shortly afterwards, his grieving mother demanding answers and saying her son was turning his troubled life around.
No, they not telling me nothing.
Once more, events are disputed while an investigation gets underway.
They went to the store, they was walking somewhere. They was walking.
But unlike in nearby Ferguson, where this year's racial strife ignited national soul-searching, there is video of the key moment. It appears to show the teenager pointing a weapon at the police officer, highlighted in this image. And that certainly backs the story of officials who say they recovered a handgun from the scene.
When we have somebody that's pointing a gun at a police officer, there's not a lot of time. I would imagine that most of us would feel like we were in imminent danger of losing our lives at that point. And I think the officer responded with what he thought was commensurate force at the time.
Emotions in these largely African-American suburbs have been on edge for months, following the death of Michael Brown, who was shot dead by a police officer. The rioting that followed scarred this city in the American heartland. And it then escalated further with the death of a black man in New York, who was put in a chokehold by police during his arrest. Neither in New York nor Ferguson was the officer charged. This time, despite the anguish of residents, the local mayor says the video could be decisive in justifying the actions of the officer.
We have the video, and I can assure you that what's on the video is what we're going to use.
The events in Missouri last night may not trigger the levels of unrest we have witnessed in previous incidents. But racial tensions in America are still rising, bringing civil rights back into the heart of the debate here. Robert Moore, ITV News, Washington.
Here, Christmas shoppers are predicted to have spent £832 million on the high street today in a new record. But tomorrow, retail analysts expect online bargain hunters to buy an extra £636 million worth of goods, just over a third more than last year. New NHS funding proposals will cause needless deaths among patients with serious illnesses, according to doctors. Hundreds of medics signed an open letter today protesting about the changes. And the Citizens Advice Bureau is calling on energy companies to give millions of families on prepayment meters a debt holiday. The charity says delaying payments until the summer will help households spread the cost of arrears. Islamic State claim they have shot down the first warplane since US-led airstrikes began in Syria, capturing the Jordanian pilot. The United States military has tonight denied those claims, saying the plane suffered from technical problems. The UN chief Ban Ki-moon is calling on the militants to treat the prisoner humanely. Sejal Carrier has more.
This is the moment armed Islamic State militants captured a Jordanian fighter pilot. We have obscured his face, but these photographs appear to show him being led away from where his plane crashed in northern Syria, where it was taking part in American-led airstrikes against IS. Militants claim they shot down the plane, but the US and the Jordanians are disputing that.
We said right from the beginning that this is going to be a continuous and long war, and we think that we have a duty to defend our country and our region from this wave of terrorism.
Airstrikes against IS targets began in September, and this is the first aircraft to be lost on militant territory since operations began. Analysts are asking how the fighters will now try and use these developments to their advantage.
I think that they will use it as a public relations boost, and that they will use it to extract concessions, or try to, at least out of Jordan or the United States and the coalition. And I think we could see, unfortunately, more propaganda videos.
IS have seized large swathes of Syria and Iraq, although they've lost some ground in recent weeks. The worry now is what they will do next. Although Britain isn't involved in the airstrikes over Syria, only Iraq, there's still disquiet here tonight at the Foreign Office over the capture. The Foreign Secretary Philip Hammond saying that he's concerned for the Jordanian pilot. And there'll be worry too over how much pressure this news will put on the rest of the Arab states who are key to the US-led airstrikes over Syria. Sejal Karia, ITV News at the Foreign Office.
Finally tonight, the men and women who have left their families this Christmas to help save lives in Sierra Leone. The country has spent the best part of the year fighting a disease which has so far killed 7,000 people. Rebecca Barry on the British medics spending Christmas on the Ebola front line.
This is how Donna from Staffordshire will be spending her Christmas this year. The protective suits in sweltering temperatures are oppressive. The daily routine to protect against infection exhausting. And that's just the physical challenges.
I'm sad that I'm away from my family, but it's something that I discussed with them before I came out here and I was prepared for. And I've been very supported by my husband and my children, and they support me being here over Christmas. And it's a worthy cause. The people here deserve the time that I can give them.
More than 70 NHS volunteers have travelled to Sierra Leone from the UK to help contain the spread of the deadly disease. And this is where some of them will spend Christmas Day this year, a British-built Ebola treatment centre run by Save the Children.
Hey, Dr. J. Good.
It's all about moments like this. A lucky survivor sees his doctor face to face for the first time. For weeks, his identity was masked by a protective suit. James usually works as a registrar in Wales.
In terms of medical emergencies, this is up there with anything in my lifetime, and I felt it was important if I had something to offer that I would come and help.
Elsewhere in Sierra Leone, there's none of the usual Christmas cheer. This village lost 10% of its population to Ebola. 16-year-old Tenna was orphaned. I have two smaller brothers I'm taking care of, she says. There's nobody else to take care of us, only me. They used to buy things for us to wear, cook for us, but we've got nothing for this Christmas. Nothing to wear, nothing to eat. The charity Street Child is providing supplies for orphans like Tenna, but for many like her, it won't be a happy new year. Rebecca Barry, ITV News.
And with that, from everyone on the ITV News team, we wish you a peaceful Christmas. Good night.
Warm outlook. Worcester Bosch sponsors ITV National Weather.
Hello to you again. A very good evening. Well, some wet weather drifting its way through northern spots in the next couple of hours. Some short-lived sleet and snow possible, mostly over the highest hilltops. Otherwise, clear with starry skies this Christmas Eve. Temperatures taking a tumble, cold and freezing with frost and ice in places as the night goes on. And then into tomorrow, well, it's looking like a sunny rather than a snowy Christmas this year. Beautifully bright from the word go. Dazzling winter sunshine out there. A really lovely day. Just a few showers drifting through the northwest and central areas. Otherwise clear and crisp all day. But staying chilly, temperatures very much on the low side. Much lower than what we've been used to after a cold and frosty start. See you again soon. Merry Christmas.
A warm outlook. Worcester Bosch sponsors ITV National Weather.